All right, nice. I think I try to do that. Oh, right when right when we started. There you go. Nice. What's going
Hey.
on? So let me some introductions are in order here. So Nate and Ken and I, we all met at our Columbia AI coursework, and we were actually all in the same group together. So we did a lot of projects. And when we would be talking about our projects or like in breakout rooms, we would start to talk to Nate about, some of the stuff he was working on in crypto. And it was super interesting. And even from a personal perspective, like I bought like, obviously if I bought more, I wouldn't be here talking to you right now, but like I would just be on an island somewhere. But like I definitely like I was in San Francisco in like 2015 and I started going to like meetups for like crypto and I was like, oh, I'm gonna buy some Bitcoin. And so I bought some Bitcoin, some crypto kitties, some Ethereum. I'm still waiting for the crypto kitties to pop. But it was so, it's just obviously like amazing to have even a little piece of Bitcoin and see it shoot up as much as it did. And like I liquidated my position eventually to like help buy my house and stuff. But I wish I could have held on to it longer. But I got a little taste of it, and so it's always been super interesting to me, and some of the stuff we've talked about. So I'm super excited to talk to you, Nate, about crypto and like maybe tell us a little bit about like how did you get into it and like what are you doing now? Like just kind of set the table for us and like how you got started.
Yeah. Yeah. So my introduction to crypto was probably a lot of people's introduction to crypto. Living in a fraternity house on a college campus, you have people who are beginning to do some illicit things with crypto, and you hear the word for the first time. You're like, okay, Bitcoin. Well, what is that? So, as people in, my circle began to have some, I'm just kind of seeing what the utility is and kind of learning more about it. In the beginning, was just something to transact with, but not really understanding the principle of it all. And then kind of the more you research, you kind of get to learn what's special about it. Um, so yeah, I think it just early on, probably like 2013 was my first introduction to it. And then in either that summer or 2014, I actually had an internship at a company that was selling Bitcoin ATMs. So making the on ramp or off ramp of actually acquiring crypto pretty easy because there's a very huge learning curve, which I think really made it kind of a mystical thing for a lot of people for a long time, and definitely hard to understand. But nowadays you just buy it with your credit card. So
Yeah, it's interesting too. Like, I don't know if you ran into this in the beginning, but like, you're talking about like illicit activities. Like, I was using it to like, I wanted to bet on stuff, right? And I was like,
yeah,
okay, like I was in a state where gambling wasn't legal, and I was like, okay,
right,
I love the principle of Bitcoin. I was like, okay, like I have a problem with inflation and like I don't really understand how dollars work anymore and we just print them and they're not backed by anything. This doesn't like make any sense to me. So I was like, okay, like I can kind of grok that this is a currency that has like a finite, limited supply and then it's going to half at certain times. And I was like, that seems like a great
right,
time to like be into it. But then when I started to
right,
use it, I was like, the cost of like transacting with this is eating up like any margin of like if this bet doesn't, even if I win the bet, just the vig that the
right.
casino take or whatever it is. And so that was one of the things that I started to be like, maybe I need to get out of this because I love the principle of it, but I couldn't figure out like actually how to use it on a day-to-day basis in like a frictionless way. Like how did you encounter that? Like do you think it's done or like
Yeah. Well, the first time I ever transacted with Bitcoin at all was during this internship. I just received it. So I received Bitcoin for, selling a Bitcoin ATM, placing one. And then I remember just one transaction, just selling it all. I received one full Bitcoin and sold it all for a little over $500. So, RIP me. But uh, I didn't have as much experience with the cost at that point, but I did have a little bit more experience with the cost when I began to engage with crypto kitties on the Ethereum network. So
You did it
that
too, the
was,
crypto
yeah,
kitties. That's
I did as
awesome.
well.
That's
So
awesome.
breeding them, selling them, etc. Yeah, I began to see what gas costs are, and I understand why there are gas costs, and I think for a lot of people, gas costs kind of became the immediate, why these coins won't be as big as people think they will be, because you don't do that when you put a dollar in someone's hand.
Right.
Um, but yeah, that was my first experience with the gas costs, and it was a little unsettling just to know that, is this what the future looks like? I gotta think about every transaction like a little bit more thoroughly. Um, but nowadays, you can either still experience that, or you can transact on other chains that are a lot cheaper too. So I mean, it's not something that is here forever in a major way. But as far as using like the big boy currencies, still a big piece of it, and it's ultimately so you don't spam the network with bad transactions.
Oh,
Yeah,
I hadn't considered that angle. I'm sitting
yeah,
over here thinking, well, merchants pay credit card transaction fees. It isn't that different, but on the front end, in regards to the spamming, I think that's a very, very valid point I hadn't considered. I imagine a lot of others
yeah.
hadn't either.
Yeah, it is just like the transaction fees, but with credit cards. But with if you're a credit card processor, you likely have systems in place to block incoming network
Yeah,
signals that aren't ones that are meant to be. So
sure.
One of the other things that I thought was interesting, and we'll talk a little bit. I just, read this book, Crypto Confidential, and I'll see if I could scroll down here so you could see the author, Nathaniel Ellison. So I just finished it. It just came out last week. And one of the interesting things, that I learned that I didn't really think about it, I guess when I was kind of in the space, was all of the transactions are public. So when you're part of a coin or anything, and you're a prominent person that's involved in the launch of a token, people can associate, they learn and they associate your wallet address. And so it's basically like everyone can see everything that you're doing. And
right.
then they can start to hit you up and be like, hey, like I saw you sold like a bunch of coins today. Like, should I be worried? And that was kind of, that was revelatory for me. I feel like most people don't think about that. Like when you're transacting in crypto, once you become de-anonymized, like it's very easy to track what you're doing. Is that still the case?
That's exactly what crypto is. Like, one of the major tenets of what makes crypto, so beautiful is the public element of it all.
Right.
Um, not going away at all. The only issues that there are there is that as far as it being public, it's public to a degree. It's public if you know how to read the blockchain. So luckily there are things called like explorers, and you could easily see the contracts or the addresses that any one wallet interacts with, but you don't necessarily know what those things are unless you continue to dive deeper. So, depending on your level of curiosity, you can gauge a lot. And I would say now, especially in this age of AI, if you have a tool like Perplexity, if you had a tool that was able to be Perplexity like and read the blockchain, then in plain English, you might be able to get a good summary of what someone has done. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, yeah. But another element of that is things are still anonymous.
Right.
You have your wallet, and the wallet is a bunch of characters, often numeric, and depending on whether you said this is my wallet or not, or you sent money to a friend but you didn't tell them that was your wallet, it's kind of hard to say who's who.
Right. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
in the book at one point there was like some VC funds that were in crypto, and they started to like associate their addresses and realize that they were kind of
Mhm.
amassing a position that would be suboptimal for
Right.
other people in the launch and stuff. So it was an
Hmm.
interesting like kind of subterfuge that can go on where you're trying to like hide and move stuff around, but it's still all public. And eventually, if you really want to sleuth, you can get there. But that's a great segue actually. So like Tell us a little bit about what you're doing now, where you're working, and how you're using some of the stuff we learned
Yeah,
in our class in crypto.
sure. So I work at a place called Pontum Network. Pontum Network is a VC-backed company that has a few major products. One of them is a wallet for a chain called Aptos. So Aptos is just like an Ethereum, but instead of the transactions costing, $5 to $10 or even more, it costs about 5 10 thousandths of a cent
Hmm.
to make a transaction. So, these are different ways in which you kind of um, gauge the performance of a chain, things like TPS, transactions per second, and then just generally cost. Um, and then the other product we have is a DEX, a decentralized exchange called Liquid Swap. So I manage a lot of the product decisions for Liquid Swap and some of the product decisions for this wallet. And right now I'm using a lot of our AI tools that we learned in order to run simulations for an airdrop that is coming in. So
Oh, okay.
essentially, yeah, we have our engineers have given me a big CSV of all the basic um, usage of our products because it's all public of all of our users. So I can see how many times they transacted. I can see if they bought one of our NFTs. I
Mm-hmm.
can see if they bought our shitcoin. I can see all of these things. And based off their participation in our products, I'm able to then like assign them different weights and scores to decide how much of this money that we're going to give away, we're targeting, around $5 million that we're going to give away into who. So there's no really good efficient way to do that besides, using computers, and I'm using Jupyter notebooks to go ahead and go step by step and to really parameterize exactly how much we're going to give for each specific uh, element of their score.
And are you doing like clustering? Like I remember we would do those assignments where it'd be like, let's just randomly cluster these customers to see who's going to shop in the frozen foods
Right,
aisle or whatever. Like, is that
right.
part of it where you
K-means.
look at all the folks in the.
So no clustering right now. However, I did have a very lengthy discussion with my friend, CEO boss, about about doing something of the sort. What he wants to do, and this is a major problem in the crypto space, is get rid of bots. So we have over 1 million addresses that have used our platform, and we don't necessarily want to give away any money to bots. So how can we go ahead and determine whether someone is a human or a bot? We talked a little bit about this. He had one perspective and I shared mine, which was we couldn't necessarily do that based off the data I'm getting, because what I'm getting is more or less a roll up of activity. Okay.
Mhm.
So like the data I'm getting is that someone has a few doo-doo coins in their wallet, or someone has um, transacted $10,000 on our exchange. But that's not really, I think, very good information to determine that the behaviors are different from a bot.
Mhm.
Because a bot may just have $1 of transactions, but they maybe still own some doo-doo and whatever. But more so, I think what would do that effectively is looking at the blockchain itself, not just a roll up of their usage with our contracts that are out there, more so all of their transactions. So, for example, if I see that there are 1,000 addresses that have each done $1 of transaction, and all of those addresses have transacted only one time with another source address, then I would imagine a real human made a program to have a bunch of bots do stuff on our network, and they made 1,000 of these bots run. And we just don't want to really give these bots any money, because if we if we go ahead and set a minimum amount of money that we give away for participation, then I can go ahead and effectively say that these bots had a cost to themselves of about a penny or two, but they're would be getting like dollars in this airdrop. So their ROI would just be like way too high. And that wouldn't be fair to people who like, use the network fairly and who want to get, a fair portion of the rewards that we're giving out.
And can you explain like what an airdrop is to
Yeah.
the crypto newbies?
Yeah. So an airdrop is a very, very silly thing that is really hard to understand outside of just viewing it as marketing. So more or less, it's what's interesting in crypto is when you create something in crypto, the cost is zero, like literally zero. And then you have to associate cost to that or value to that via creating like a market and like adding utility to it. But an airdrop more or less is giving away a token, and the token inherently has zero value until you make it tradable for something that does have value. So I can basically create a token and I can say this token's worth $100 million, but it's only worth $100 million until you start trading it. And so an airdrop is the idea that you basically give people rewards for using your network because those people are the ones that are giving your network any value. And like a great way to explain this further is, Facebook is able to say that their stock is worth money because they have quote unquote daily active users. And they have this many users who are spending this much money or like doing this many transactions or, whatever. But if those stats were zero, then Facebook would be worth nothing. So we're essentially rewarding our community for giving us stats. And
so
we're giving them a token.
Is this based on kind of wallet addresses that are already in your ecosystem, kind of on this? You'll say, okay, here's all of our users. We're just going to send them directly some of these tokens.
Exactly that.
Is it a scale distribution, or is it just like everybody gets a token if you're in the network?
Yeah, so that's one of the things that we're working on. And to give you some detail about it, and I can give this detail because I'm going to be sharing this publicly anyway. Like we have like over 1 million addresses in this CSV file in which I should be giving money, and we have $5 million that we're essentially trying to give away. Okay, but the thing is, there's so many outliers here. Like there was one person. We've done over a billion in transactions on our decentralized exchange. There's one address, one wallet that has done like $60 million of transactions. So, I can say very confidently because this wallet has done like 40,000 transactions that this is a bot. But the thing is, this is a good bot. Like I like this bot. This is essentially the person that comes in your casino and then just clicks the button. What we don't want is to give away a lot of money to the bots that click the button one time and they're expecting, a minimum amount of money being given. So essentially right now is I'm culling these addresses to make sure that you have to reach a certain threshold in order for you to get a reward that we think is commensurate with like real participation. So for example, if you're trading on our decentralized exchange, but you're trading 1 penny, how did you really provide us any value? No, what you did is you did something probably called farming.
That's what I want to talk about next.
which is there's two different types of farming, but there's airdrop farming, which is you're essentially putting in the minimum amount of effort to hopefully get outsized rewards. So you're helping with the facts of, we get to say that we have one more user or that, this many trades happen, but you didn't provide any value. Instead, there are real bots out there that are providing lots of value because we get trading fees, but you couldn't reasonably be a human transacting this much. Or if they are, they're just really a special individual.
So I have two, just a follow-up question on that. So one, just the last thing you said, when you go on, YouTube and you look at the intersection of like AI and crypto, there's like a bajillion videos of like, I used ChatGPT to automate my crypto and I made $100,000 like in the past month or whatever. So, and it sounds like, and then there are platforms, I guess, that you would like rules based kind of platforms where you would put in certain parameters, then I guess
Hmm.
just let it rip. Would
Yeah.
those are those bots as well? Like would those be categorized as bots? And
Yeah.
yeah, just tell us a little bit more about that, because that I feel like a lot of people
Yeah.
who would like dip their toe would do it like
Yeah.
that, you know.
Yeah. I would say that's like, I wouldn't quite, I don't think it would be fair to call it like a holy grail, but it's a really good idea and it's totally possible. And amongst this group, we could probably sort it out as well. So I wouldn't discourage anyone with a reasonable amount of means to not do it. You could most certainly do it.
Okay.
Yeah. The thing about it is, I'm not necessarily exactly sure what um, you would be what the agents would be looking at. But I would have some ideas about it. But I would just generally say like that's real.
Okay. That's really
Yeah.
no, because I think look, the end of, and Ken and I talk about this all
Yeah.
the time. Like it's like work
Yeah.
harder, not smarter, right? It's like we all try to
Yeah.
realize like how do you do stuff? And so like really the dream is like how do we create and leverage AI to do things and make our lives easier? So it's like, oh, I just turned it on today and then I'm going to leave and then I'm going to come
Yeah.
back and there's gonna be a bunch of money that it made me and I didn't,
Yeah.
you know, nothing.
Yeah.
And so when I looked at like I already started looking at like some of these bots and it's actually similar to some of the stuff like conceptually that we worked on with like Tesla. I remember we were trying to figure out
Yeah.
like market, you know, what are certain indicia that you want to look at, and then you have these hard and fast rules where it's like, okay, I doubled my money, I'm going to take half, I'm going to pocket it, so you kind of always just pocket your gains and try to play with house money. They look
Yeah.
at just kind of trends and things like that. But it seems like, you know, when you mention like if you have means, is it also like just in terms of return, like if you had $500 that you wanted to start playing with and just start to grow it that way just to like have a low, is that something you think you would encourage Ken and I and everyone else to like look at if you
I I
like?
I would most certainly encourage anyone to do this. And there's actually a YouTube channel that like kind of does this. It's called Moon Dev.
Okay.
If you were to search up the subject, you might easily kind of find it. Um, I'll say, like, I'm from the snippets of this channel that I've seen, like, nothing about it will seem all too magical. I don't think he necessarily employs like proper, AI, but more so just like algorithms. As far as like, some people will say once you cross a moving average, like you should do
Right.
that. I think most of what he's doing is that. But where I'm coming from, as far as agreeing with your general statement, there are some things which I would say from some amount of experience, not some amount of experience of someone who just consistently is winning, making weird bets on shit coins, but just from, having my eyes open, that you can look, and because everything is public, you can kind of get a sense of whether something's going to flip in a very positive direction or not. And like, to give some detail there, if I were to do something like this, the first thing I would do is have a social element to it. The last thing I would do is integrate the financial aspect. The first thing I would integrate is the social aspect. How many people are talking about it? Who is posting the contact address? For example, there's many influencers in your book that will post the addresses of these coins, and they have 300,000 followers. And if I can see that, and I could see how many wallets are currently holding the coin, and what is the velocity of wallets going up or down, or what is the velocity of the average number of coins across wallets, etc., I can gauge that there's probably a good level of certainty that, depending on certain factors, being how many people are holding this coin, etc., that it's going to go up.
Yeah. I was going to say, to me, it feels like just the ability to see, like you're saying, wallet velocity and average, tokens per wallet, being
Right.
able to actually look into it as if you were able to see your neighbor's stock portfolio, right? Well,
Yeah.
what's my neighbor buying? You don't have to
Right.
ask him. you can
Right.
look if you don't need to know his name, good news, you can find the average data. And
Right.
the thought of that is, I think, really something that people probably don't comprehend when they think about, trading and whatnot. But yeah,
Yeah.
I just opened my mind, and I'm probably a little more educated in this than most.
Right. And I think right now, people will see on the news that Pelosi bought this stock, and it happens later than in real time. But there are data service providers in the blockchain space that you can know within seconds if someone bought something. And the thing is, if you're smart enough and you employ more tools, you can attach wallet addresses to people. So you don't have to have any uncertainty to say, hey, did that influencer really buy that coin? You can know with a decent amount of certainty. And yeah, it just there's many ways in which you can game the system, as far as you can go ahead and have 1,000 different wallets buy a coin and be like, oh my God, 1,000 different wallets are holding it. But if you look deeper, all those wallets came from the same original wallet. So I mean, depending on your level of sophistication, the part is that blockchain just has everything laid bare, and there are very reasonable algorithms, besides even using like AI. Like, I'm just talking concrete algorithms, okay, that a human would be able to go step by step, which could lead them to a reasonable buying decision.
This is a great
Yeah.
segue into one of
Yeah.
my favorite chapters in the book. And they do so the book like talks a lot about, it's more about like his journey, but then he'll have these chapters that are kind of like, oh, here's like some tips or like how to do things. And so this chapter was, how to be a shady influencer. And so, the first thing here is search around for low quality cryptocurrencies. And a lot in the book, a lot of the farming, which I wanted to ask you more about as well, they would look for coins that had just started, that were super nascent, that no one knew about. And then they would basically, buy some and then reinvest it back in, I think, with like another anchor currency, maybe like that was tethered either, like a stable coin or something like that, so that you start kind of then actually bringing real value into kind of the treasury, so to speak. And
Yeah.
then then it says like wait a few days, and then if it takes off, then it's basically like post that on your social, like, look, I got
Yep.
in on this. Delete the ones that don't work, and keep doing that for a while, and then you'll start to get a following. And it's basically like your followers come in when you recommend something, and as soon as they do that, then you have to exit.
Right.
Was kind of like, I mean, it
Pump and
sounds like
dump.
a pump and dump, but
Yeah.
it's like who is going. It's the big theme seems to be like exit liquidity,
Yeah.
which is like you need to get in early, and then because it's such a small pool that if someone dumps all of their stuff, like it'll crash the so you just need to get in there and then like quietly get other people to buy it and you get out. So can you tell us more about like farming? Like, okay, I see a coin that's launching today and it's like they're just giving it away for free. What do I do from there? Like, how does farming, if I wanted to be a farmer,
Right.
just a modest crypto farmer, what would I do?
Yeah.
Like, how does
So
it
so
work?
the farming that they're talking about is being rewarded for providing liquidity.
Okay.
So one of the things that you mentioned, though you didn't explicitly give it a name, is how a lot of this works right now is something called a liquidity pool. So a liquidity pool basically holds two assets. Okay. And oftentimes, like, the easiest way to understand this is I will trade one digital asset that is really silly and dumb for one digital asset that is very universally valued. So, for example, this one might be a stable coin, like a US dollar on the chain. And then this one will be, for example, a doo-doo coin.
Right.
So, so how do you incentivize people to put their money outside of their wallet? How do you incentivize people to take their coin that they just invested in and not have it in their wallet, you have to give them some level of interest. You're essentially loaning it out for a utility. So what this liquidity pool does is people can then transact to trade one for another. And how it works is, if I want to sell my my doo coin and get dollars, then I take out dollars and I put in more doo coin. So now this is a little bit more and this is a little bit less, which means that because there's less dollars attached to more of this coin, that this one's price has gone down. And the same happens the opposite way around. If people want to buy the new coin, then they're taking it out of the pool. So the volume of that in the pool is down. And now they've given more, let's say, stable currency into the pool. So now the price has gone up. So essentially, in order to reward people for giving the community a means to transact, they essentially give you interest. And that's more or less called farming. So by putting your coins in the liquidity pool, you are getting some reward. So you can call that staking. You can call it farming. There's a few different ways to describe it, but that's essentially what you're talking about here. And yeah.
So you're basically like, I'm putting some real currency that has market value, dollars or Ethereum or Bitcoin, whatever it is. I'm putting it in there, and that's giving more liquidity to the. I guess one benefit also is that the larger that pool gets, the more stable the price gets, right? It's not as like large. There aren't these large fluctuations, which could be problematic. So it kind of, the larger the pool gets, the better. And then, so I put in $5, I get a bunch of doo coins. And then I can say, okay, do I want to then put those doo coins back in
the pool? Yeah. So
and
you would then have to put in,
if I do that.
Yeah. So in order to participate in the pool, most pools are called like automated market pools. And essentially they function by keeping the same value on each side of the equation. So in order for you to put your new token in, you would have to put the same amount of value of the other token in. So that now the entire pool is larger and there is more liquidity. But in order to participate, you can't just put in one side, because then the other side wouldn't match up to that side. You would be changing the price. So in order to not change the price, you have to put the same value on both sides.
So I put in $5 of $5. We'll just make it easy, right? And I get 100 doo coins. If I want to put, and let's say 100 doo coins is worth $1. Let's just say, make it easy. Like, so it's $1 for 100 doo coins. So I put in $1, I get 100 doo coins. And then I'm like, I want to farm. So now I want to put those, I'm going to take those 100 doo coins. I'm going to put them back in the pool. But then do I also have to stake another, put in another dollar to like?
Yes. So you have to put in both in order to,
And so how do you farm? Like, how do you reap out of that? Because it sounds like, I got to put in what I got to keep putting in money. So how do I farm and get out of that? Like, how does it become profitable with the arbitrage?
So
like, how does it work?
So what's confusing and what is very Ponzi-ish about it all is how that works is the creators of these coins, these new tokens, they typically reserve an amount in order to pay the people for providing liquidity. So this is what happens is you put your tokens in this pool and now they're not in your wallet. Okay. So here's the downside of that. If the token value goes up, then what happens is, if this token value, I'm trying to get in a sentence here. If this token value goes up, there will be less of it. And because you only put some amount in the pool, you only get proportionally that amount in the pool. So what will happen is, if the token value goes up, you will actually have less of that token when you take it out. So you might put 5 tokens in, and if the value goes up, then you're only taking 3 out. It's worth 3 is still worth the 5 that you put in originally. But how do you incentivize people to actually do that and not experience what is called impermanent loss? you have to incentivize them by giving them some interest rate. So they pay out an interest rate in a token. And
Okay.
most often it can be like the same token that that is, the questionable one, if you will.
Okay, so they'll pay interest. So like I put in $1 and I got 100 doo coins and I put it back in the liquidity pool. The token goes up. Now, if I wanted to pull that dollar out, now it's
Then
actually
you
it's only
now then you
75 or
Yeah,
whatever.
so it's still worth $1 and you only got 75, but because you're providing value to the system, you farmed and they're going to give you another 20.
Okay.
I mean, to some extent, it sounds very, and again, not even remotely close. But you put your money in the bank and they give you interest. And what do they do with it when it's in the bank? They loan against it to make money on their end. And
Yeah.
sure, the price of the actual token, let's say not commodity, is changing, so you're taking less out. But at the end of the day, the value is still there, and you are making the interest. It's just in a slightly more roundabout way than your central banking system.
Interesting. And then another thing that kind of came up reading this is it's about liquidity, but if you are kind of an early, let's say you're involved with a coin and you have millions of them and they're worth a whole lot of money, you can't really exit your position because there's just not enough volume in a lot of these cases for like
Yeah.
founders where like you start and the one that he's talking about is like CryptoCraft, and it had like 7.5 million of Ethereum in liquidity, and then it started to go down to 5, and so it just goes. Oops, sorry about that. Decline that. So it starts to get a little bit hairy in the sense of, and I imagine it'd be pretty frustrating if you're an early to a coin and you're paid in that coin, but you can't cash out ever.
Right.
Like,
Right.
is that a like, how does that work in the crypto community where, when you get a job at, a Google or whatever, they're paying you in stock and they're saying, okay, look, your stock goes up, you're gonna benefit. And I imagine the sales pitch with crypto would be the same. Like, look, get in on the ground floor, man. You're gonna have like a bajillion coins, and it's gonna be great. But then you turn around, and a year or two later, you can't exit your position because you'll crash the coin because of. And if you start dripping it out, people know your wallet because of the transparency we talked about earlier, and they go, "Why are you selling your coin? There must be something wrong." So like, do you encounter like how does crypto get around that, or like in terms of like their incentive structure for like early adopters? Is it tough?
There's no getting around it.
Yeah.
That's exactly the book is very accurate, very, very accurate. And I know this from certain levels of experiencing it myself. So one way any person could easily kind of verify this is a lot of influencers and on within the crypto community will post screenshots of their wallet to Twitter. Okay. And what you'll notice is some of them will have millions of dollars in their accounts. And having met some of them, I know that they're not living necessarily a lifestyle that is totally in line with what you would have in a bank account on your phone that someone, if they stole your phone, could easily just send themselves. And that this is just because they really can't oftentimes take it out, not because of the liquidity problem, but because everyone will hate their guts.
Right.
So if you just, said that, hey, I just made this bet, and then you sell your own position in the bet, well, everyone's going to hate your guts. So that's one issue there. But the liquidity problem that the book describes is completely true too. And that's the fact that when there is a market cap associated with any coin, the amount of market cap that is actually able to be, liquidated is usually, let's say 10% or less. And there's a lot of ways that you can really see this easily. So if you were to go to like a coin market cap, what you'll see is you'll see something that will say market cap, and then you'll also see a term that says FDV, fully diluted value. And this is because a lot of times there's only a certain amount of the coin in circulation. So for example, the coin might be worth $100 million, but only 5% of it is in circulation. So basically some other wallet holds 95% of this token and can just quote unquote dump on you. So this whole idea of exit liquidity, people are always talking about it. And typically, you don't really need to worry about exit liquidity too much unless you're maybe a dirty, rotten influencer. Like if you buy a token and you just happen to get lucky with it, unless you are really sophisticated, and I have friends that are this level of sophisticated, you probably bought it after there were many holders, and it's basically PvP, so to speak, player versus player. You're not going to have any advantage over anyone else. And you might have fine if you put in $100, you probably easily get your $100 out or whatever multiple it was. But I think this excerpt really talks about the people who are an influencer and they create a coin and they can repeatedly do this. They create a coin, they market it, and now it's worth tens of millions of dollars, but they own so much of the supply that, for one, if you see who the original owner of the coin is, the first owner of the coin, you'd be like, huh, that's the owner of the coin. And if you see that they own 90% of the coin, then as long as you have something in here, you can make a reasonable buying decision. But what doesn't have this issue is a lot of coins that are community owned. So there's something called like a community takeover, and what often happens in the crypto community is someone will launch a coin, it gains some level of popularity, and then they get the holders of the coin get dumped on by the person who owns the majority of the coin, and then the coin will be worthless. But holders of the coin will say, you know what, I've had enough of that. I'm going to keep buying this coin even though it's worth nothing. And then it's more of like a more fair system where people really only buy the coin, not because they started it, but because they really believed in it. And this is what happens with coins that have like usually some level of comedy associated with their name. So for example, you've heard of Pepe, you've heard of like Doge. These are community takeover coins because the creator of Dogecoin created a coin and he owned all of it. And now he still probably owns a large supply of it, but there are billions of dollars of this coin owned by everyone across the world. So it has a lot of liquidity.
I actually bought some Dogecoin after
Yeah,
reading Elon Musk's biography because it seems
right,
like he's obsessed with turning X into like a payments platform, and the kind of conventional
right,
wisdom is like, oh, if he does do that, he will do that at some point, that Dogecoin would be the currency
right,
that he would probably choose. So I'm like, oh, okay,
right.
it's like 12 cents now. I'll
Yeah,
do it. But it's not rational. It's more like it's kind of GameStop. And that's, I was curious about that
yeah,
too. Like, is there, like, looking ahead, is there a way to, or do you see like crypto becoming more of like a social movement like GameStop, where, whether it's like voting, like I dream about, vote, like if you could buy a coin that would give you a vote on the blockchain for like elections and stuff, just to see and look at like election results versus like what people are showing up
yeah,
on the blockchain. Like, do you think like
yeah,
how is anyone doing that stuff, or is it more just like kind of shit coin with like eagles and
yeah.
rando stuff on it?
I'll say one thing before I actually answer that, which is a lot of people have reason to be disappointed about the crypto community. And the reason they have reason to be disappointed about the crypto community is crypto can solve all of this and do it well and give people so much of a more fair system than they even realize. And I truly and honestly believe that crypto will be the future. And the problem with it all is the crypto community, you know, works by the dynamics of everyone trying to make money for themselves. But if the crypto community worked together, then all of these issues would have been solved 1,000 times over.
Right.
So, for example, the costs associated with each transaction, you know, right now there's this term called Web3. And Web3 is the whole idea that you own what is online for you and that you're in control. And the reason why these realities aren't fully set in is because it is very expensive to have your database be on a blockchain.
Right.
It makes a lot more economic sense for your database to be in a centralized data center that is run by your company. If the crypto community worked together, we would have everything be on a blockchain and no one would be mad about it. Because why? Everything's completely there and laid bare and fair. Like
Right.
there's nothing wrong with this system. The things that are wrong with the system are people laughing about how, expensive it is to do a transaction and all these things. But these things are completely solvable, and we will continue to move that direction. So I would just say, like, crypto will be solving almost, just so many important things, and you participating in crypto will have certain amounts of returns. And right now we live in an age where people who maybe, mostly millennials, I would say millennials and younger, crypto is having, more of a golden age, and people are taking it more seriously because they've turned their backs to the system that doesn't give them a shot. They've said, we're not going to participate in trying to get 6% a year on the stock market. We're going to try to go all or nothing and try to be a millionaire off of Dogecoin. There's no reason to it. It's people being jaded by the system. And, I can show you academic articles that kind of like I propose this thought, but, right now the main product of crypto is gambling, and it's people are participating in it because they might not have any other choice. And in the future, the whole mechanism that allows people to do whatever they want with their money, gamble like crazy, will be the most free and just system, because you can't gamble your money like a complete degenerate outside of crypto. You have to, people have to ask you, are you sure you want to do that? Are you sure? You have to click buttons that say, I've read the terms and conditions. That in crypto, it's condom is off. You are doing exactly what you want to do, and you are in control, and no one can stop you. And there are pros and cons to that, but really it's people are deciding that they want to take whatever level of risk it is to change their life. And a lot of them are doing it with shit coins, et cetera. And that's just what is most visible right now. And in the future, what will be visible is people who were ahead of the game will own, their digital identities and their information, et cetera. And they'll do it because it's affordable, but we're not necessarily there yet.
And it reminds me of like the US dollar, right? It's just, we just believe in it, but
Right.
it's a faith thing. And when you look at
100%.
like the
Yeah.
numbers, it's like, well, there's no way that with the compounding interest, like it's never going to get paid off, and it's not backed by anything.
Right.
Except we just all believe in it.
Yeah.
It's only because the world put faith in it, much like you're saying. The oil is the closest thing that we actually have tying it to value at the moment. But if they were ever to get, oil off of the dollar standard, guess what's it backed by at that point?
Yeah.
And so now, like, looking at this, like, it does feel like the dollar, if you look historically at currencies, right, it's like they have their run, and it feels like we're kind of on the tail end of the dollar at this point. And so do you think, looking at crypto, do you think it's going to be something like, the usual suspects like Bitcoin that everyone's going to kind of pile into once the faith in the dollar shakes? Or do you think that'll be some variation of like a stable coin, like with, because another thing is like silver that I've experienced, right? And gold is
Yeah.
similar, but like silver, there's some questionable valuation out there because there's a lot of paper certificates for ownership. But if actually everyone redeemed their paper, I don't think there's the supply to support, and then silver would
Right.
skyrocket.
Right.
Kind of like GameStop. If like everyone agreed to redeem their silver, they would really be rich, but no one's doing it.
Right.
And so assuming the dollar is kind of on shaky ground, where do you see like the safe havens in crypto right now, like looking ahead with a crystal ball?
Yeah.
Are there any obvious suspects or?
Yeah, your answer needed to be a part of my larger answer. Yeah, I mean, one of the benefits of crypto is the fact that some of these coins just have a fixed supply, and it's auditable, et cetera. So yeah, I mean, I think the Bitcoins of the world, the Ethereums of the world, et cetera, will do really well. I still believe, though, at the same time there will be competition, and this is why I wouldn't necessarily say that people should put all their eggs in one basket. Um, I do think that, like, in regards to what you said, you wouldn't invest in a stable coin, you would invest in the underlying network token. So for example, like just look on Coin Market Cap, and just look, and it'll be Bitcoin, it'll be Ethereum, it'll be Solana. If I'm being self-serving, it would be Aptos, which is another one. But essentially, it would be all these things, but also it'll eventually be the end all token, which doesn't exist yet. So the end all token is one that is very cheap, can put a lot of data on the blockchain, etc., and very fast. And right now, all the tokens are trying to move towards that with their technology, but they haven't necessarily found it. And that's why there is a little bit of competition to be had. But I think it's fair to say Bitcoin is your digital gold, etc. So I mean, those are the easy choices.
Yeah.
But they're not. It's not the choice that will be, quote unquote, the last one.
Right.
Yeah, so unless there's technological improvements that happen with that chain.
And then I guess to wrap it all up, just bringing it back to AI. So it sounds like, if Ken and I were to start working on, a program that tied in what we learned with AI and crypto, it would
Yeah.
behoove us to look at some of the social signals,
Mm-hmm.
the social media, the velocity of transactions, the
Yep.
number of tokens, and start to kind of build a model that would say, hey, flag these ones, saying this has the right makeup maybe for an opportunity. And then the other thing that I've kind of started seeing in terms of AI and crypto is, Ken, I think you have like a fucking huge graphics card, right? Like Nvidia that you got recently, right? Everyone
Yeah.
was using it, like their super horsepower Nvidia graphics cards to do AI. And before that, it was mining. And it was like, you wanted like a super rig that in Iceland that was like 2 level, 100 stories down in the permafrost or whatever, and cranking out coins. And now it sounds like there's some companies that are starting to pivot from AI back to crypto. Like, I have this rig, I should start mining stuff. Are you seeing that? And I know like Bitcoin, I guess it's still profitable to mine, but it can't be as much as it was before because of the halving and stuff. But like, if someone has a whole bunch of AI gear, what's the best application of it? Do you think it would be towards like crunching data or like mining?
It's hard to say. Right now, there's a lot of systems in place that want to reward people for crunching data, distributed computing, et cetera, especially a lot of AI applications. But they just aren't yet going through their airdrop. So people are getting points on their system, but it's not being translated yet to money. We will see it happen. And maybe there are some out right now that do pay you. I think one is a Kosh network, and Ken, I think you should definitely look into that one, a Kosh network. You essentially just get to be your decentralized computer, and people are, renting your computing resources, and especially to do inference, et cetera. So, for example, I was running programs on my computer which would do image generation and would do text generation using these models. That will happen and be good. The pessimist in me, and the one message that if anyone could skip to the end of this video, is I would ask
TLDR.
everyone, I would ask everyone to wake up and to stop allowing the major tech companies to continue to consolidate power and to participate in these type of things, because we can have a very fair and just system where people own their data and are getting paid righteously and not having tech overlords if they distributed these these very powerful technologies that everyone thinks are going to change the world, and we have the ability to do so, but you have to participate in it, and you have to make these networks that you participate in challenge the networks that have consolidated power. So in regards to, that article that I sent you, where they're talking about building data centers that take so much energy, that's what these tech companies are having issues doing. They're having issues trying to create these data centers which will create enough energy to supply all the GPUs that they will need. But this is talking about, these tech companies having magnitudes, hundreds, thousands, maybe millions of times more power than, the general public. And this is the issue that they have, is it's hard to have all power centralized in one location. Well, good. We can be these data centers all around the world, and you could do it on your phone. You could do it on your laptop. You could do it on anything. You don't need to have the smartest device to do it. But that would allow you, or really anyone, to live in what I think would be, I don't need to make the decision for everyone, but I think it would be a brighter future if this type of power were decentralized, in my opinion.
No, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I feel like the system is not working for everyone. And I think people use these platforms and it's just all free. And it's like, well, how do you think that works? What? And no one really thinks about it.
I've said for quite some time, if you're not paying somebody for the product, you are the product. And the further we get down this, the more apparent it becomes, much in regard to what Nate's been saying. It's, my last stop before Columbia was selling customer data platforms, and like the amount of data that people have that you're just completely unaware of, like down to like, well, what do I like the sole color of my shoe to be? Right. It's the most proprietary things that you'd never even imagine somebody would want to know. When you package them all in one box, guess what? It's the package that's valuable. And there's so many people that are just clicking away. I mean, myself included, right? Just clicking away your rights every time you go to a new page.
100%. Well, Nate, thank you so much for jumping on with us and talking. I mean, I learned a ton, and I'm kind of inspired.
Good to see you guys too.
I want to look more into like leveraging some of the AI to just automate some buys and sells for me in crypto and figuring it out.
I've got Moon Dev in the second window over here.
I saw you as soon as you said it. You were like,
what do we got? No, I'm gonna check that out. That's good advice.
Go get those coins, because if we see consolidation like we see right now, everyone's going to need to take care of themselves. So get those coins.
Yeah. Farm those coins, people. Awesome. Well, dude, it's great to see you. And
good to see you guys.
Love to have you back again once we start becoming shady crypto influencers. We'll bring you back so you can tell us.
That sounds great.
And be sure to smash that like. But dude, good Nate. I appreciate you, man. Good catching up.
Good to see you, man. All right, take care. Thanks, guys.
All right, bye.
All right, bye.